Welcome, everybody, to episode 2 of the Her Game podcast presented by Capelli Sport, the official uniform supplier of the Women's Premier Soccer League. I am Jeremy McPeak, the social media director for the WPSL, and I'm joined once again by Nicole Singleton, the communications director for the WPSL. Nicole, how you doing?
Doing good, Jeremy. How are you?
Not too bad. Episode 2, here we go.
I know we've had a lot happen in between our last recording, but it doesn't feel like we recorded too long ago, but we have a lot of stuff to talk about today.
Yes, we do. Absolutely. We appreciate everybody that watched our first episode, our debut episode on where were we? YouTube, Facebook, IGTV, and everybody who downloaded the audio version of the podcast. We are now, let me see if I can get this. We are now on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Amazon Music, Stitcher, Pandora, and I gotta say it quietly, Alexa. I'm afraid my Alexa is going to start talking to us. We are on Alexa, so you can actually ask Alexa to play Her Game, and they will play the podcast. So pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Did all your family download and subscribe?
I shared the link and everything. Just mass text out. So
awesome. Well, glad to have everybody's support. We really appreciate it. Please download and subscribe and give us a rating if you get a chance. Let us know what you think. But we got a lot of topics to talk about today and another special guest in the second half of the podcast. But before we get started, we really want to offer our sincere condolences to the Cleveland ambassadors, as well as the University of Cincinnati, the teammates, friends, and family of WPSL player Sidlowski, who lost her life in a drowning accident this past weekend. Just a horrible story. And of course, we're very sad. Our thoughts and prayers are with all of her teammates and friends and family.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a heartbreaking story, but on a positive note to that, her family did launch a GoFundMe in her name to create scholarships to be awarded in her name, and they had a goal of 5,000. Well, in the first 2 days, they actually raised 85,000 among awesome. 1,200 donors. So it's a devastating tragedy, but some light comes out of that, and it just shows how much of an impact Allie had on people and the good that's going to come in her name as soccer players are able to go to college on scholarships. So.
Yeah, definitely an inspiration. Pretty neat to know how many people's lives that will touch. So sad story. And again, our thoughts and prayers are with the Cleveland ambassadors and her family. And of course, speaking of soccer college programs, we got to give congratulations to Santa Clara University, winners of the NCAA College Women's Soccer Championship just last week.
Yes, absolutely. And what a match that was. We had 19 players featured in that game between Florida State and Santa Clara, and actually 9 WPSL teams represented by those players. We had a total of 12 players on Florida State and then 7 on Santa Clara. And Brandi Chastain is actually volunteer coach for Santa Clara. And, she's done a lot with the league and part of the California Storm. So we had a lot of featured with the league in that one match. So that was pretty exciting to see.
Absolutely. And we should also note Brandi Chastain, future Her Game podcast guest.
Yes. We're
trying.
Brandi, if you're listening, we're ready to have you join in. Just call in and we'll does it work that way?
Align our schedules there. Zoom in, I think.
Zoom in. That's better. Yes. So I wanted to also mention on the Florida State side, they actually have 2 players that are named the Mac Herman Trophy finalists, Jalen Howell and Malaya Berkeley. And they actually played for WPSL's Motor City FC. So it'll be exciting to see whenever that award is given out to see who won that, because last year WPSL alumni Katarina Macario won from Stanford. Right. So, we're rooting for either Jalen or Malaya to take that trophy in.
Absolutely. That's awesome. And speaking of awards, Nicole, I believe we had a number of All-Americans as well out of the WPSL.
We did. We had multiple Division I players who earned All-American honors for first, second, and third team, as well as NAIA. So we had in the Division I, almost half of the players who won those honors were players from the WPSL. So that's really, really remarkable to see. And then one of those players, Yasmin Ryan from Oklahoma City FC, actually was drafted 6th overall in this past NWSL draft. So excited to see her continue to win
absolutely
accolades. And then in the NAI, we have 5 players from FC Pride, Nashville Rhythm, and then St. Louis Lions. So definitely want to give those players, applause for all their hard work this unique and unusual collegiate scene.
Yeah, no question, for sure. Always great to see our players having success at the college level, and just awesome to see so many of our players back on the pitch as our 2021 season is officially underway. Hard to believe we've actually completed 2 full weeks of the season and are starting week 3 now since we last recorded. But just talk about what you've seen from these first 2 weeks so far, Nicole.
Yeah, we had a lot going on in those first 2 weeks of matches. I do want to point out that our first goal of the season came from Charlotte Eagles' own Marina Nessick, who also happened to have a hat trick in that opening match. So, which was like a domino effect, and we had a whirlwind of hat tricks in multiple games preceding that one. So, but Jeremy, I do want to give you a little trivia question here.
Oh boy.
How many goals do you think were scored in week 1 and 2 combined?
Combined. Week 1 and 2 combined. Wow. I know we had a lot of matches between the 2 weeks, so I'm going to say probably at least 100. We broke 100, I'm thinking.
We did. We had over 120 goals scored.
Ah, it was close. Okay.
So in those first 2 weeks, so a lot happening. And I do want to mention that we had a high scoring matches as well. And I wanted to bring up the SJEB FC, one of our expansion teams, who scored 8 goals in their opening match. And then Rhode Island Rogues also scored high. They scored 7 goals, I believe, in their opening match as well. So the Strikers, these first 2 weeks you could really tell they were ready to get back on the pitch and just wreak havoc all across the field. So that was exciting to see.
Absolutely. Great way to kick things off. And of course, week 3, as I mentioned, has just gotten underway. We've got 28 teams in action just over these first 3 days of the week, and then a lot more games coming over the weekend, the long holiday weekend, Memorial Day weekend. And of course, you can catch many of those live on MyCuju, the official streaming partner of the WPSL. So be sure to check that out, see which matches are going to be streamed live. And if they're not being streamed live, they should be made available on demand for replay after the fact. So check that out. MyCuju, again, a great partner of the WPSL, our official streaming partner. And they're going to be with us all season long, helping to stream our games and let our fans at home watch games all across the country. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Coming up in the second half of our podcast, I mentioned we've got a very special guest, Lindsay Eversmeyer, who is the owner and coach of Fire and Ice, is going to be joining us here in just a couple minutes. So stick with us. And of course, Lindsay is a former player herself and has a great story. So really excited for you guys to hear that. But we also want to encourage you to join us for our next episode in another 2 weeks. We're going to be doing this podcast every 2 weeks. So the second week of June, keep an eye out for episode 3. And Nicole, do you want to give everybody a preview of who our guest is going to be for that episode?
I do. We will have Nala Turner from Central Florida join us to speak about her story. She's actually the goalkeeper for FC Dallas this season. And she was recently diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, but has since overcome and beat that cancer. So she is cancer-free. Awesome. And made a comeback and will be playing with us this season. So we're going to have her on and talk a little bit about her journey through that and then her comeback. So excited to hear her story.
Absolutely. Can't wait for that. Again, watch for episode 3 or listen for, download, subscribe to the podcast coming up in the second week of June. That'll be our 3rd episode. But right now, let's send it to the second half of our 2nd episode of the Her Game podcast, again, brought to you by Capelli Sport. Okay, let's kick off the second half of our 2nd episode ever of the Her Game podcast, presented by Capelli Sport. Let me get there we go, Capelli Sport. Nicole said I need to do this. Or kiss it? Is that what you said, Nicole? I have to kiss?
Yeah, kiss it.
Capelli. I don't think I'm going to do that. But thank you guys for watching. Nicole, you want to introduce our special guest?
Yes, today we have a very exciting special guest, Lindsay Eversmeyer, the owner and coach for Fire and Ice. Lindsay, it's so glad to have you with us today.
Thank you so much for asking me.
Now, we want to get into the outlook of the season and the team itself. But first, let's talk about your own personal playing career and how you got started playing soccer, how you fell in love with the game, your collegiate time. Just give us a little background on your playing.
Oh gosh. Okay. So I obviously started playing when I was younger. My parents got me into it. I lived in a neighborhood where it was a bunch of boys and I was pretty much the only girl. So playing sports was the only option I had if I was going to play with anybody at all, pretty much. So, but it was a good thing, obviously, because it kind of drove me to be that competitive athlete that I was and kind of leads me into what I did in the future. So I played club growing up. I had to drive like an hour to practices because there was nothing near me. Then I played college. I played at the University of Kansas for a year. And then I came home and played at Harris-Stowe State University, wanted to be closer to home. And then I went and I tried out for a women's professional team out in Washington. And on the second day of tryouts, they told me the league was folding. So no options for women at that time, which was super disappointing. Fast forward a little bit, we'll just say to 2013. We'll say to 2005. 2005, I actually was so frustrated that there weren't any options. So I decided to try out for a men's professional indoor league. It was called, it was the the MISL. So many leagues now.
So many letters.
MISL. The MISL, and it was a team called the St. Louis Steamers. And I'm just like, you know what? I'm going to try out for this men's team. If anything, not to just prove that I could do it, but to bring awareness that there weren't other options. If I had other options, I would be trying out for those teams, but there was nothing at the time for women. So I tried out and I made it and played some games with them. And then, the league here folded, that team folded, back to square one again. And then I finally got in contact with Jerry Zanelli, the former owner of the WPSL. And I had played in the league back in 2007. And so he was like, hey, we'd love you to start a team in St. Louis. And I thought about it. I was like, yeah, there needs to be an option here. There were no options. So that's why I started the team. And we've been going, this is our 9th year now.
Awesome. You just covered a lot of territory there, but I want to go back specifically. I want to go back specifically to a few of those letters, the Major Indoor Soccer League. You posted on your Facebook just a couple months ago in February. I think it was the 16th anniversary of the date that you played in the league. And you talked about, you said that you did something that some people would call insane. Can you talk about what the reactions were and the opinions that you heard at that time when that news came out that you were going to do that and why you really were doing it? You touched on that a little bit, but dive into that a little bit more.
Yeah, I think that it's something because, just the whole stigma of women playing with men, people thought, wow, like, I can't believe that you're doing that. This is crazy. Like, what makes you think? And during that time, all the interviews that I went on, and there were so many of them, everybody always asked me the same question, which I kind of was offended by. They always said, like, what makes you think that you can play on a men's team? And my reaction was always, well, what makes you think that I can't play on a men's team? So, I mean,
did you actually say that, I hope?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Good.
If you know anything about me, like, I'm very outspoken about how I feel. And so I did. I was just like, I can't believe that you're asking me this question. Like, I tried out, I made it. And because I have different body parts, I guess I'm not allowed to play with these. I don't understand. So, yeah, but I think it was a mixed emotions from different people. Like from females, they were like, you go girl, you do it. Like, this is exciting. And from the guys, of course, it was a different reaction. Some of them, the ones who had daughters, were like, man, this is a great thing for you to be showing my daughter. And there's the guys that I played with, which not all of them, because some of them were very accepting, but the other ones were like, why are you here? And I'm like, it's a bigger thing. It's not about you or proving something about the team. It's about, there's no options for women, and there's a ton for men, and it's just not fair. So I kind of challenged our area and other areas, obviously, because there just wasn't anything. So I think that's where the insane thing came in.
Lindsay, you're talking a lot about the frustration of, the women not having the opportunities as men do at that time, and trying to open the door for yourself to continue playing at that level. The NWSL is coming on their 10-year mark, and the WPSL is closing in their 25th season. How meaningful is it to you to see the progression of the women's game since you felt those frustrations you just spoke on, and the opportunities that players of your own have had to go professionally?
Yeah, I think it's great. And I talk to it about my players all the time about, they don't know how fortunate they are to have all of these options now. Whereas when I was younger, it was just so frustrating, because it's like you got out of college and then you stopped. That was it. You played on some indoor women's league, which, there was you, the college athlete, and then there was the, 40 or 50-year-old woman who just was trying to, stay in shape. So the competitiveness was different. So it means so much to me now that so many people have stepped up and actually supported women's soccer and created these opportunities. So it means a lot to me.
You touched on actually playing in the WPSL. What are your memories of being in this league as a player?
It was actually, I was a part of the team. I was a part of bringing that team that I played on. But then back then I was just wanting to be a player. So it was me going out, finding a coach, finding a sponsor, finding an owner. I'm like, hey, you guys put it together. I just want to play on it. So I had a little bit of experience with the WPSL and how it all works before I started a team in 2013. But the first team I was on, we actually came in, won our conference, and made it all the way to the finals of the WPSL and lost in double overtime. Oh. And then the next year we were on that same track, and our owner actually, during the end of the season, he brought the St. Louis Athletica, the women's professional team, into town, and I tore my ACL, and I was done. Yeah, so I was like, the timing. I've torn my ACL 3 times, and so the timing has always been just terrible for me. But I was happy that it happened, and it was a good experience.
So Lindsay, it's 2013. You mentioned you got in touch with Jerry and discussed bringing a team in the St. Louis area. What can you touch on the decision for you personally to say, okay, well, this is gonna happen. I'm gonna make this team. We're gonna join the league.
Yeah, I think it was an impulse. Honestly, he contacted me. He contacted me out of the blue and was like, "Hey, how you been doing?" And I'm like, "I've been great. What's going on?" And he's like, "You did such a great job starting a women's team there the last time. We need a St. Louis team in that market. Would you be willing to try to do it?" So I thought about it for a little bit. I asked around. I always kind of ask, and what would you think? And would you support? I asked players, like, would you play on it? And I had so much support. I was like, all right, you know what? I'm just going to do it. So I just went for it.
That's awesome. You won Coach of the Year, I believe, in the Midwest in 2013 and in the Heartland Conference in 2017. Can you talk about, did you always have an interest in coaching when you were a player, or is that something that just kind of came about? And what do you enjoy about coaching today?
Yeah, so I don't want to say it was about coaching. No, I didn't always want to be a coach. It just kind of happened. Someone just asked me, like, hey, are you interested in coaching this high school girls team? I was 21 when they first asked me. So I had, those girls were close to my age at that time. And I was just like, yeah, once again, impulse. Yeah, let's try it out. Let's see if I can do it. And I tell you, one of the things as a coach is that I say all the time is if I knew what I know now as a coach, like back then as a player, I feel like I would have been unstoppable. And it's such a good learning thing. So I love coaching truly. And it's become a passion of mine because it's not just about developing good soccer players. It's about, for me, it's about developing good human beings. It's teaching them so many other things besides just on the field or off the field. I mean, it's so much more than that. And I've developed relationships that I continue to have with my players now. I mean, now they're getting married and having babies, which is weird because I still feel like I'm pretty young myself. I'm just like, oh my gosh, they have a 4-year-old now. This is weird. But it's just such a great thing. And it really brings joy to my life. So I love it and cherish it, honestly.
Now you have a very unique perspective on the league, being a player and then as a coach and an owner. Can you touch on the comparison or what's different within that perspective of going from player within the league and then now having your own team and coaching?
Yeah, I'll tell you something. The same stays the same as the competitiveness. Like as a player, I was competitive, and as a coach, I'm just as, if not more competitive because now it's like my thing. As a player, you just show up and you just compete, just the normal everyday thing. You don't realize what goes into it in the back scenes, as a coach. I highly respect all of my coaches now because I'm like, oh my gosh, you had to do A, B, C, D just to make this happen. So that's the big difference. And now it's about pulling pieces together that I like, researching players and trying to bring it all into one team and make it successful. Whereas like before, like I said, I just showed up and just played. So, and then finding sponsors. I mean, that's a whole other thing. And the game day management operations, it's just, there's so much more to it. So I like both sides. Do I wish I could still play? Yes, I would love to still be a player, but I really am overall my playing career and experiences and accomplishments. I think I'm more proud of the things I've done as a coach, to be honest with you. So this is where I'm at now. This is where I was.
Talk about your competitiveness and the things you've done as a coach. Fire and Ice won the WPSL championship in 2017. You guys have been a playoff team both in 2018, 2019. What can we expect from Fire and Ice this season?
Well, I don't make any promises. That's what we look like this season. We've yet to be under 500. We've never had a losing season, knock on wood. So I would hope that we are still competitive. This year is different. And that's not just for myself, it's for all the teams across the country because of the college season and because of COVID. They had a full season this spring. So coaches and players are now taking the summer, off for their bodies to recover just physically and mentally. Whereas normally they play 4 games in the spring and they're dying for some more game action during the summer. So things are a little different. Finding players this year was a lot more difficult than in the past. Usually I would have them flock, and now I'm asking people, I'm like, seriously, it's hard to find people to play. So I hope to still be competitive. I'm still going to get out there and try my best, but who knows? We'll see.
So we might see you on the pitch. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm done. I think my insurance company would drop me if they saw me just cross over the sideline. Too many injuries now.
So you touched on the differences between preparing for this season and the season before. Fire and Ice starts their opening game June 5th on the road against FC Pride. Can you get into a little bit how preparing for this season was and how excited you are to be back on the field with your players after a year and a half being away because of the pandemic?
Yeah. Well, one thing that I really love about this team is we're like a family. So when you're apart from your family for a year and a half, you're always excited to get back with them. Preparing this year is different. One, because normally we start in the middle of May, which we did. We started our training sessions, but players are taking a couple weeks off or a few weeks off before they come in because they just got done, which I totally understand. So preparing this year is a little different. So we started last week with 2 training sessions. This week we'll have 2. And then the next week we'll finally have a full squad. So we really only have 2 or 3 training sessions before we start, before we actually get to prepare and get down to game day tactics for our season opener. So it's a lot different.
Well, we know your schedule is busy, so we really appreciate you joining us. But we do want to throw out one more question. Tell everybody where they can follow you. I know you're on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook, and also tell us about your other career. You're, I believe, an executive with Zaya Active.
Oh my God.
Correct?
You guys really do your research. Yeah, that's something I got into over COVID. I'm like, all I do is wear activewear and I'm working out. So, and I'm bored at the moment. So I might as well just get into selling activewear. So that's like my second passion, I would say, on the side. Right now, honestly, I also, underneath Fire and Ice, I have an all-girls youth soccer academy. So we have a youth club that is starting to get into tryouts, and, they'll be picking up right in August. So yeah, while the WPSL is going on, I got the club that I'm gearing up for as well. So, and I'm coaching a high school team, a local high school team. So I don't have any time right now
to
think about anything else, but I do. Plus my kids, I got my kids.
Well, everybody follow Lindsay on TikTok, Instagram, Google her, and Zaya Active. You'll see some fashion shows.
Oh, yeah. Don't Google that. Don't Google that.
Never mind. Scratch that.
No, it's whatever. It's fun. It shows my playful side with me and my family, and what happens when we get bored in our house.
Right. Love it.
And as mentioned, Fire and Ice will open their season June 5th on the road with FC Pride. Lindsay, thank you so much for joining us today and for all you do with the Women's Premier Soccer League.
Thank you so much for having me. It means a lot.
Absolutely. Thank you. Good luck to Fire and Ice this season.
Thank you so much.